Hey guys, this is Jim K from StairwayToVideo.com with another one of my video tips. Guess what I've got today? I've got the DJI Osmo Pocket. We're going to open it up, see what's inside, put it all together, and then we're going to review it. Come on, let's get started. Okay, this DJI Osmo Pocket comes in kind of a nice little box. It's all plastic wrapped. Let's break into it and see what we got inside. Let's close this knife before I stab myself. All right, a little bit of paperwork. More information, visit our website. Oh boy, here it is. Well, this has got a pretty cool little case that I've read about or seen online with some more paperwork inside. A couple of cables. Lightning connector for the front of it. It looks like a Type-C connection. Wrist strap. And there it is. Wow, it's a lot smaller than I thought. Holy cow. Look at that thing. Well, that's what comes in the box. Here's a better view of it. It's really smaller than I thought. I mean, that thing has got to be, it's got to be 5 inches long, something like that. Let's see. Yeah, 5 inches long. That's crazy small. Man, this thing is cool looking. Well, like I said, let's charge it up and we'll put it through its paces. Okay, once you've got your DJI Osmo Pocket charged up, you're going to want to follow the instructions DJI gives you in a video that they've got out. But first, let me show you something. To turn this on again, you press this button right here. This goes through a little cycle and then starts up within 5 seconds. You can take this, depending on if you have an Apple device or you have an Android device or something that takes a USB-C connection. This is a lightning connection I'm putting on right now. It's going to look like that. You're going to want to download the DJI Mimo app. And then once you've got that app in there, you plug this in. It'll start up automatically and load the Mimo app, which I've already got it installed. And then you're off to getting the thing activated. So anyway, take a look at this little screen here next to me and you'll see what I'm talking about. So first, download the DJI Mimo app. Then go to this web address at the top here. It's a YouTube website. It's a DJI video showing you exactly how to activate your new DJI Osmo Pocket. I'll have a link down in the description below that you can go to and watch the video. Okay, so you've gone through the activation process. You've got your DJI Osmo Pocket now activated. Now it's time to have some fun. So let's turn it on by pressing that button once. Notice how it goes through a cycle. It activates itself so that it can get started. Now I happen to have the Lightning Link adapter or the Lightning adapter on here so I can plug it into my iPhone 6. And one reason you want to plug it into your phone is because then you can access a lot of different settings than you could without it. So let's plug it in. Once you plug it in, it turns on the DJI Mimo app. Notice it just opened it up. So this is the app. It's opened. If you wanted to go back to home, you press this home button up in the upper left-hand corner. And it gives you several different options to start some tutorials, but we don't want to do that. We don't want to go back just to the, oops, we want to go to the camera. So if you look in here, on your left side, you've got home, you've got this little camera with an icon on it. You've got this auto setting, and then down here you've got what it says. Right now it says 1080p 30, and then you've got 3 dots down on the lower left. On the right side, you've got this icon, which actually allows you to shift from looking forward like we are right now to doing a selfie situation. Okay. So let's switch back. And here you can go from video. You can scroll this up or down, video to slow motion. I'm not sure if you can see it over here, but slow motion, time lapse, photo. So if I wanted to take a photo, I could do that right now. Panorama, but we're just going to be messing around today with video. So that's all we're into at the moment.
So over here on these, on the left side here, if you want to go into this auto setting, in here, it's going to tell you just basically what the camera is selecting for you, because this is auto. You can't change it on your own. If you go into manual, press that little manual key, now is when you can go into these settings and change your ISO, your shutter speed, your EV setting of whether plus or minus. So let's get out of there. We go down into, go down into this 1080/30. This is where it allows you to select between, 1080 or getting up into 4K and giving you your frame rates. So if you notice, I'm in the 30 frames per second rate. You can go down to 24, 48, 25, 50, 30, which you're in, 60. You can go between quality, fine, and super fine. For me, I don't need super fine. It just, when you click on it and go into the pro setting, it tells you that sometimes it'll heat up your DJI Osmo Pocket. So anyway, I'm on 30. We're going to get out of here. Let's go down to these three dots down here at the bottom. If we go down here, press those. This is where you go between basic and pro settings. If you go into basic, you don't have a lot of control over things. If you go into pro, now you can access some other things that would be, make your video better, or you've got more options anyway. One thing I wanted to explain to you is this down here. When I first started doing this, in fact, in one of the scenes in my video, you'll see where I was driving my truck. I kind of drove past the pond. Well, I had it in AFS, which is this here. This is AF autofocus single. If you click on the single setting, AFS, see if I can do it. No, I guess I can't. So I go down here, click on AFS. There, AFS. That means every time you want to focus the scene, you've got to select it. You've got to finger select it. So I had it in here and I hadn't selected it, so it was actually focused on the trees. It wasn't focused in the background. So the next time I did something like that, I went in here. What's going on? And I went back to AFC, which is autofocus continuous. For a beginner, that's what I would recommend. That way the thing's going to focus for you. And it may do this little funny focus thing during your video, but unless you're a pro, I'd stick with autofocus continuous. Then you don't have to worry about it. It just focuses for you. Okay. Up in here, you've got a histogram, which tells you this is our histogram. The nice thing about the histogram is you can move it wherever you want to move it. This is just telling you where your whites and your blacks are. If you notice, my whites are almost to the edge. My blacks are almost down to the bottom end, the left end of it. I mean, you don't have to have a histogram unless you just want to make sure you're not overexposed. So let's click off of that, which I did. Let's go back into our three settings here. This just sets up zebras. Now, if you notice now it's showing that my white tablecloth here is overexposed. I don't care about that, because I don't care if it's got an overexposed background, because all I want to show you is this scene right here, so we can figure out how to set this up. Let's go back into the three dots again. I'm going to shut off our overexposed. Grid lines are something that that I like. I like them because, I want that. I just want the grid lines. I like it because it allows you to set up your rule of thirds. So if you want to have your subject over here on the left, it may look a little bit more appealing than it would if you just have everything in the center all the time. So I like having my grid lines on. Noise reduction, I've read online that it doesn't seem to do much. You kind of put noise reduction in when you're doing a very dark scene, and it'll have a lot of noise in the background. Noise reduction is supposed to take that away. This right here is for your microphone. If you look here, you've got these settings for auto, low, moderate, high. I've been experimenting with them. That's something you can experiment with. The microphone isn't the greatest on this, but it's better than nothing, and it also can use as a scratch audio, like a secondary file you could use to sync up audio if you wanted to. I've been using mine kind of on auto just to experiment with it, so that's something you can experiment with too. Oh, here's something. We've got white balance. I've got mine on auto just temporarily. You can change it to sunny, cloudy, incandescent. Notice how it's changing the scene in the back here. That wouldn't be too good for this scene. Fluorescent. Actually, that's not too bad. I don't have fluorescence in here, but that actually doesn't look too bad color-wise. Or custom. You can do a custom white balance by changing your degrees of Kelvin here from all the way down to, let's see. all the way down to from 2,000 all the way up to 10,000 degrees Kelvin. So let's move it right to where it was. It was at 4,500. And let's go back to auto. I've got my video format to MP4. You know, that's all I have it for. You've got a choice between that and MOV file. I just choose MP4. That's something you can look up and figure out if you want to change it to a movie file. I don't know why this anti-flicker isn't on, but maybe I am in the Pro. So anyway, the main thing though for me was getting that continuous autofocus on it. That really was important for me because I realized that I was shooting these videos that were out of focus. Say you wanted to go into one of my favorites of this thing that this thing does is this time lapse setting. I mean, it's incredible the way you can set it up. So the center thing up here tells you the parameters for your time lapse. So for instance, right now I've got it set for every 4 seconds it takes a picture during the time lapse. The total duration of the time lapse is 20 minutes. And then it's set up so that you can schedule sort of a path. The thing that's so cool about that is, 4 or 5 years ago, if you had equipment to be able to do what this thing does during a motion time lapse, it would cost thousands of dollars probably to set that up. Today, a $350, DJI Osmo Pocket can do it itself. So it's pretty cool. So here's the other thing I like about it. So you set this thing up. So say 4 seconds, 20-minute time lapse, so it has to go a full 20 minutes. And I've noticed in order to do that for full 20 minutes at 4 seconds per shot, it gives you about a 9 or a 10-second time lapse when you're all done. So the other thing that I like about this thing, so when you set up your parameters, with the phone connected, and then you unhook it from the DJI, now notice the time-lapse settings are now set in here. So if I want to do a time-lapse, say I want to do a time-lapse. Let me make sure this is in focus here. Say I want to do a time-lapse now. And it's okay to move this around. So say you want your first... So anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So again, this is 4 seconds per shot. After 4 seconds, it takes a picture and does that for the full 20 minutes. So it's asking you, where do you want your first shot to be to start the motion time lapse? So you just move the lens over to here. You hit the plus button. Now it's telling you to go to number 2. You want the second one to go over here, and you hit the plus button. Now it gives you a green check mark, which I'm not sure if you saw it in there, but that green check mark says you're all set. So now when you go to press your time lapse button here to start it, if I press this, that first setting, this camera's going to go over to here first, so over to your right, and then it's going to start the time lapse every 4 seconds, take a shot.
This is the trick I use to keep the Osmo Pocket steady for doing time lapses.
One way to set up your Osmo Pocket, in case you don't have a tripod or until they bring one out, is to use something like this. It's just a plastic clamp with plastic jaws. So say you wanted to video this beautiful scene of this pond near my house. You just clamp it like that, and boom, you're ready to go. It really works great. It keeps your Osmo Pocket more stable than it would just sitting on top of a table or something.
Be sure not to over-tighten the clamp. You don't want to damage your Osmo Pocket. This first motion time lapse was done by clamping the DJI Osmo Pocket to a fence and then pointing it up at 2 different points from start to finish. I did this second time lapse with the Osmo Pocket clamped to a second-story window.
There's another thing I wanted to talk about, and that is battery power and length of battery. It's supposed to have about a little over 2 hours worth of use. The first day I used this thing, boy, it lasted a long, long time. Then I was doing some other things with it, and it didn't seem to last as long. But that's what's great about this thing is you can use almost any one of these type of power banks. This is just a digital juice one that plugs into the wall to charge it. And then you use a USB cable to plug it into the Osmo Pocket and charge that. But the great thing about it is you can charge it even when the Osmo Pocket off, or you can charge it while you're using it. So in other words, you take the cable that came with it, this guy, plug that into here. So if you'll notice here, see the green light blinking? That means it's charging and the Osmo is off. But if I want to turn it on, it'll also turn on and I can use it while it's charging. It's just telling me to remove that if I want to connect it to the computer. But I can go in now and even though it's charging, I can still use it. I'll turn it on and do a little, there, I'm in video now. Now I'm actually doing a video. Do a little tilt up. That's the other thing it has. This little bar on the right side, you can tilt the camera up or down by just taking it and pulling it up or down. It's not as precise as it is when you've got your phone connected, but it still works. So it's kind of neat. Otherwise, you can't tilt it up without that. You can take it too, and you can take this thing and move it manually, and that's okay to do that. If you want to do something quick, you can just take it and move it up, and now you're good to go. So that's also an option you can do.
This next scene I captured by just hand-holding the Osmo Pocket and then driving my truck past a pond. This next scene, I was just hand-holding the DJI Osmo Pocket without my cell phone. So I was doing it alone without the cell phone and just panning to the right.
So again, like I said, when you're disconnected from the phone, you have fewer settings than you do when you're connected to the phone and you're in the Mimo app, but you can still get into stuff. So look at, we're in the main screen here. If I want to see what's going on, so I can go from panorama, time lapse, slow-mo, video, and then regular photos. If you get out of here, you can actually select between photo and video with this one button. So if I press it once, it goes to video. If I press it again, it goes back to photo. So that's a quick way to go between photo and video. Let's see, if you slide from the left, it's going to load videos you've already taken. So there's one, there's two, there's three. So you can see I've done some other videos in here before. You want to get out of there, you can actually just press the button or slide to the one side to get rid of them. If you slide down, it goes into a little settings button. It tells you your battery calibration, tilt control, and auto power off. Well, how many minutes I've got it set up for. There's even more. There's how much storage I've got left. This accessories button, I haven't played with that at all, but it looks like I've got it doesn't tell me much. Oops. Anti-flicker, I've got it set for 60 hertz. And then language reset, device info. If I scroll up, it also gives me a quick access to some things on how I want the gimbal to work. If I want to go from, again, from like a setting like that to get back to what I was filming before. This just gets you into like a selfie mode fast if you want to go into a screen and do it. Otherwise, you can do it from here. If I press this button 3 times, there we go. Press it 3 times. I get myself into this kind of selfie mode. If I press it 3 times again, it should go back. Here we go. That's what I wanted to show. Yeah, that just recenters it. You can recenter it either like that, or you can recenter it by pressing this button twice. So say you've got this thing all out of kilter, and it's all not where you want it to be. If you press this twice, it'll recenter.
All right, now we're going to see how stable this is if I'm running, trying to video something off to the side, okay?
The next 2 time lapses were done by clamping the Osmo Pocket to my Joby GorillaPod using the same plastic type clamps.
Okay, I just wanted to show you what this is going to look like.
And sound like. Except for this little voiceover clip, the rest of this clip you'll be listening to will be the Osmo Pocket's onboard microphones.
If you're doing it in selfie mode, like say in a studio like this, the first time I did it, I had it in full auto, and boy, oh boy, it just made every single blemish. It made me look too real more than I wanted. So anyway, what I had to do is I had to set this in manual mode. I put it in 30 frames a second, 1080p, and then 1/60th of a second shutter speed. That's the kind of look you're going to get when you do it in selfie mode, say in the studio. So let's go outside and see how it looks outside.
This is kind of what you can expect your video and audio to look and sound like if you're outside. It's a pretty crisp, cold January day. It's very overcast today, so there's not a lot of light. But this is about what it's going to sound like. So I've got it at 1080p, 30 frames a second, 1/60th of a second shutter speed.
Here's a sample of some pictures taken with the Osmo Pocket.
Well, I had a lot of fun playing around with this Osmo Pocket. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, but it did a pretty darn good job. So here are some of my key takeaways. First off is its size. When I opened up the box, I couldn't believe the size of it, even though I had seen videos on it on YouTube. I couldn't believe the size. I couldn't believe that it was going to have the kind of processing power that they talked about on YouTube. So anyway, DJI did an amazing job with the size of this thing. It's incredible. The second thing was the time-lapse feature. That by far was my favorite part of using the DJI Osmo Pocket, was setting up and playing with time lapses. And I've never been able to do time lapses, or never took the time, or never understood how they worked in camera. This thing was amazing with time lapse. For that alone, it was worth the price for me just doing time lapse. The third thing would be face tracking. Face tracking worked really well. The problem with it was the focus went in and out on me several times while the face tracking. It would still face track and follow my face. The focus went out. So I don't know what that's about, or if DJI is going to update with a firmware fix for that. I don't know, but that was a little unsettling, where you spend all this time, shooting this video, and all of a sudden you get back into post-processing and your face is out of focus. So anyway, that was a little unsettling, but it didn't do it too often. The fourth thing that stands out to me is the AFC and AFS. which stands for autofocus single and autofocus continuous. When I first started using it from the factory, it was on autofocus single or select. I'm not sure what it's called, but it's AFS. I just thought that meant autofocus. So I was messing around with it and driving around using it. And I realized that the part of my video that I wanted to be in focus, it was out of focus. So until I figured that out and put it on AFC, which stands for continuous, then the thing was able to focus on its own. And I got some really great shots with it autofocusing on its own without having to me sit there and select where I wanted it to focus. So that was a great thing to find out. So if you want it to be focusing continuous, put it in AFC. The fifth thing was the ability to put this thing into manual mode and to be able to change settings depending on where the sunlight is, if there isn't any sunlight, if it's cloudy out. That was a nice feature to be able to go into the pro setting and then put it into manual, be able to change that ISO and that kind of stuff. The only other thing that I really didn't like about it was the screen and the aspect ratio. You know, if you look at this guy and you look at the size of the screen, it's really almost too small, especially for a guy like me that wears reading glasses. If I leave my reading glasses on, fine, but with them off, I can hardly see anything that's supposed to be in focus on the screen. And the other thing that bothered me about the screen was the fact that it's not in the right aspect ratio for what you want it to be in. So you'll be looking at a scene, say, you think that you've got everything in the frame, and it's either not or it's in the wrong spot because it just gives you a very small area of the screen, even though your aspect ratio is larger and you can actually put more in the frame. So that's one thing that bugged me about that. But maybe they'll do a firmware update on that and give you even though it might even make it smaller, at least the aspect ratio would be good. So my absolute final conclusion is I love this thing. I love it for the time lapses alone, for the motion time lapses, to be able to start over here and then as it's shooting off these pictures in time lapse, to be able to watch it follow it. I mean, that's just unbelievable. The video is good. I love the video. I mean, you can't get the kind of video you can out of this thing for this size of a package. To be able to put this thing in your pocket, I mean, it really is amazing. And to have a 3-axis gimbal on top of it, genius. So my conclusion is a big thumbs up for me. I really like it. I think it would be a great product for you if this is something that you could use in your kit, which I'm going to be using. So thanks again for following along this big, long video. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and that's all for me today. See you in the next one.